From zero to the top, real stories of people who became millionaires and changed their lives. There's a comfortable lie that many people believe, that millionaires always started with an advantage. Wealthy family, the right connections, incredible luck. But the truth, and it's unsettling, is that most started with nothing but a problem too big to ignore. Curiously, rock bottom is often the best starting point, because that's where illusions run out. When nothing works, the mind opens up to what truly does. Perhaps you've felt this before. The feeling of trying too hard and making little progress, working, paying bills, repeating the same days, and, deep down, realizing that something is wrong. Here's the counterintuitive statement. It's not a lack of opportunity that prevents change. It's excessive conditioning. Thinking like everyone else leads exactly where everyone else ends up. And these real stories prove that the breakthrough begins within, long before it appears on the outside. What you'll discover here aren't magic shortcuts, but invisible patterns. Simple decisions, made at the right time, by ordinary people who refuse to continue living on autopilot. Whether they manage to transform chaos into wealth is perhaps not the question. Is it possible? But what am I delaying understanding? And the answer, interestingly enough, may come much sooner than you think. The turning point, when life forces you to change. There is a curious moment, almost silent, when life corners a person and asks, without words, is it going to continue like this? Almost no one becomes a millionaire in a good day. The turning point usually comes from hardship, overdue bills, the frustration of looking in the mirror and feeling like you're living below your potential. It's there, in that uncomfortable discomfort, that something begins to stir inside. It's not courage yet, it's exhaustion. And believe me, well-directed exhaustion is usually more powerful than fleeting motivation. Many who started from scratch report exactly that. It wasn't a brilliant plan, it was an emotional breaking point. A day when accepting less was no longer an option. It might have been an unexpected job loss, an embarrassing bankruptcy, or even a tough conversation with oneself late at night. This turning point doesn't come with fireworks, it comes with silence and decision. It's when the person stops shifting blame and takes responsibility for something simple, yet uncomfortable. No one will come to rescue her. From that point on, the responsibility shifts, and that changes everything. The interesting thing is that this moment doesn't solve everything, but it opens up a new perspective. The person begins to see opportunities where before they saw excuses, learns to listen to success stories without envy, and starts asking better questions. Small changes emerge, listening to different kinds of content, reading something that expands the mind, avoiding environments that drain energy. Nothing spectacular yet, but profoundly transformative. And it's precisely at this point that something begins to take shape. A curiosity that, little by little, will lead to the next discovery. The discovery of an unexpected ability. After the turning point, something curious begins to happen. The person starts to observe themselves more closely. What once seemed too commonplace begins to take on a different weight. A forgotten talent, a skill learned out of necessity, an old curiosity. Everything is reevaluated. Many millionaires say they didn't discover something new. They simply stopped ignoring what they already knew how to do well. It's like finding value where before there was only habit. And, let's face it, this completely changes the game. Some realize they always knew how to sell but never took it seriously. Others understand that they had an aptitude for numbers, communication, technology, or problem solving. They just lacked the understanding of these skills as assets, not just details. At this stage, the mind begins to make different connections. What if this could be turned into income? Small, almost timid tests are emerging. Selling something simple, offering a service, creating content, learning from those who have already walked the path. Nothing grandiose yet, but profoundly strategic. The most interesting thing is that this discovery doesn't come with absolute certainty. On the contrary, it comes with doubt, insecurity, and that little flutter in your stomach. But it also comes with quiet excitement, that feeling that there's something there begging to be explored. The person starts investing time in learning more, observing references, testing things out without telling everyone, and, without realizing it, they take the first real step towards an even greater internal change, one that completely redefines their way of thinking. The first million-dollar decision, changing the mental environment. Before changing their lives, these people changed what entered their minds every day. It seems simple, but it's profoundly strategic. They realized that continuing to listen to the same opinions, consuming the same content, and living with the same stimuli always produced the same result. So they made their first truly million-dollar decision, to protect their own thinking. Less noise, less negativity, and more ideas that expand. It wasn't isolation. It was conscious selection. Many began by swapping distraction for learning. Instead of aimless hours on social media, they started listening to audiobooks on their commute, watching lectures while doing simple tasks, or reading a few pages before bed. Works such as Think and Grow Rich, The Richest Man in Babylon, or Rich Dad, Poor Dad, they became frequent companions. Gradually, vocabulary changes, beliefs adjust, and the impossible begins to seem merely something not yet learned. This new mental environment creates something powerful: focus. The person begins to filter conversations, avoid sterile debates, and learns to silence external voices when necessary. Not out of arrogance, but for self-preservation. A different, almost unsettling clarity emerges, making certain habits lose their appeal. And it is precisely in this state of heightened awareness that practical decisions arise, small, yet consistent, that no one applauds, but which build something solid behind the scenes. That's where the invisible sacrifices begin. The first steps that no one sees. Invisible sacrifices. While the world continues as normal, something changes behind the scenes in these people's lives. They begin to trade comfort for construction, immediate pleasure for silent progress. It's not glamour, it's discipline. It involves nights spent sleeping late to study, weekends dedicated to testing ideas, and difficult choices that almost no one notices. From the outside, it seems like nothing is happening. Inside, everything is being reorganized. Many report giving up small pleasures, fewer outings, fewer impulse purchases, less time spent on empty distractions. In return, simple yet powerful routines emerge. Waking up earlier to learn something new, jotting down ideas, planning the week, or reviewing past mistakes. Some start with side projects, selling services after work, creating content at night, or learning digital skills for free. It's not heroism, it's consistency applied intelligently. The curious thing is that this period tests patience more than ability. Nothing happens quickly, and the urge to give up arises frequently. Even so, something keeps these people moving. The clarity that they are building something that time will reward. They learn to enjoy the process, even without applause. And without realizing it, an answer begins to emerge. Timid at first, but real, as if the money were finally starting to listen. When the money finally responds, the first major result. After so much silence, something happens, and almost always unexpectedly. It's not a cinematic explosion. It's a sign. The first sale that truly excites, the contract that seemed too far away, the project that finally generates a return. At that moment, the money arrives not just as financial value, but as confirmation. It works. That's when many people realize they weren't crazy, just too advanced for those observing them from the outside. This initial result changes the emotional game. Confidence grows, fear diminishes, and decisions become firmer. Some use this money to pay off debts and breathe a sigh of relief. Others reinvest immediately, understanding that growth comes not from consumption, but from expansion. It's common to see people improving their work tools, buying strategic courses, or hiring occasional help. Not for ostentation, but for vision. The focus shifts from surviving to scaling. The most interesting thing is that this result doesn't eliminate the problems, it only changes their level. The mind begins to work differently, seeing greater possibilities and more calculated risks. The person understands that this was only the first answer, not the final destination. Then a powerful question arises. If I've come this far, how far can I go? And it is precisely this question that pushes the next step, the one that transforms something good into something truly extraordinary. Expanding, how they went from good to unbelievable. After the first major success, these people understand something crucial. Repetition isn't enough. Expansion is necessary. They begin to look at what worked and ask how it can reach more people with proportionally less effort. A scaling mindset emerges. Processes are organized, errors are mapped, and decisions cease to be emotional and become strategic. It's no longer about working harder, but working smarter. Many begin to reinvest consistently, whether in their team, technology, or advanced knowledge. They learn to delegate, even with fear, because they realize that growing alone has its limits. Books like The Time Triad and The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. They step in to help organize priorities and strengthen financial discipline. Gradually, the initial chaos becomes a system, and the system becomes predictability. And predictability in the business world is worth its weight in gold. At this stage, the person also learns to say no more often. Not to bad ideas, but to good ideas that distract from the main focus. This is where many differentiate themselves from the majority. They resist the temptation to embrace everything at once. Growth accelerates, but it comes with responsibility and pressure. And, curiously, it is at this exact moment that the most dangerous mistakes arise. Those that almost ruin everything. The mistakes that almost destroyed everything and what they learned from them. When growth accelerates, mistakes cease to be small. Poorly calculated decisions, excessive trust in the wrong people, or the rush for greater results can exact a high price. Many millionaires admit that they came dangerously close to losing everything just after they started earning well. It's as if life tests them. Do you know how to maintain what you've built? And in this test, the ego is usually the biggest enemy. Some made the mistake of mixing friendship with business without proper criteria. Others grew faster than the structure allowed. There are also those who ignored clear warning signs, believing they were shielded. These setbacks hurt, but they teach. They taught the importance of contracts, financial reserves, planning, and above all, intellectual humility. Many began to seek mentors, legal and financial advice, understanding that intelligence without guidance becomes risk. The most powerful thing is that these mistakes didn't define them. They refined them. The pain brought maturity, long-term vision, and a different kind of calm in the face of crises. They learned that falling is part of the process, but repeating the same mistake is optional. From then on, something changes definitively. The relationship with money ceases to be emotional and becomes strategic, and this prepares the ground for an even deeper transformation, the one that happens after the million has already become a reality. The mindset after the million. What really changes? When money ceases to be an urgent concern, the mindset shifts. The constant fear of running out gives way to a more subtle concern, preserving, growing consciously, and not losing control. People who have reached a million realize that wealth is not about spending more, but about making better choices. Financial behavior becomes calmer, more strategic, and less impulsive. There is no longer a rush, only a long-term vision. At this stage, habits become non-negotiable. Regular financial planning, constant reading, and careful time management become central to the routine. Many begin to invest more solidly, diversifying between businesses, real estate, variable income, and knowledge. Not because of trends, but for protection. Money begins to work silently, while the person chooses where to put their energy. Curiously, the more assets one has, the less need there is to prove anything to others. The most transformative thing, however, happens internally. The person understands that true wealth lies in becoming someone capable of repeatedly creating value. This changes self-esteem, posture, and even the way they relate to others. Success ceases to be an event and becomes an identity. And it is precisely at this point that an inevitable question arises. What do I do with all this now? The answer leads to the next and final stage of this journey. The legacy. How real millionaires impact other lives. After achieving stability and freedom, something curious happens. The focus shifts from simply accumulating wealth. Many real millionaires begin to feel a different kind of unease, almost a silent calling to go beyond their own success. They realize that money, on its own, loses its luster when it doesn't generate impact. Then arises the desire to contribute, guide, and pave the way for others. Not for status, but for meaning. It's like closing a cycle that began way back, at absolute zero. Some choose to mentor people, share their knowledge, and shorten paths that previously took years to understand. Others create social projects, invest in education, local businesses, or initiatives that transform communities. There are those who support causes discreetly, without any publicity, because they understand that helping doesn't need a stage. Money becomes a tool, not an end. And this change brings a sense of fulfillment that no purchase can offer. The most interesting thing is that this legacy isn't born ready-made. It's built little by little, starting with the right question asked at the right time. Each person finds their own way to give back to the world what they once had to learn on their own. And, ironically, it's at this point that many report feeling the greatest prosperity in life. Not in their bank account, but in their conscience. The journey seems complete. But does it really end here? From zero to the top, what are you going to do with all of this? Now the inevitable question is simple, but uncomfortable. What are you going to do with everything you've just learned? Because knowledge that doesn't translate into action is just entertainment. The stories you've heard aren't about luck, genius, or rare privileges. They're about decisions made when no one was watching. And that puts responsibility in its rightful place. In your daily choices, even the smallest ones. Even those that seem insignificant today. Perhaps you don't yet know exactly where to begin. And that's okay. Starting by adjusting your mental environment, reviewing habits, observing your skills, and being honest with yourself is already a powerful step. What kind of content do you consume? Who do you talk to about money, growth, and the future? What simple decision are you avoiding out of fear or comfort? Big changes almost always stem from small questions asked with courage. So reflect. If you continue exactly as you are, where will you be in 5 years? And if you decide to apply just one idea learned here, what could change in the coming months? The journey from zero to the top doesn't require perfection. It requires commitment. If this content has provoked you, made you think differently, or taken you out of autopilot, don't stop. Here. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and continue learning how to transform mindset into real results. The next turning point could begin in the next video.